A racist nurse humiliated a pregnant black woman and called the police to arrest her. 10 minutes later, her billionaire husband arrived and everything changed. A pregnant black woman walks into a hospital seeking help and ends up fighting for her life instead. Maya Thompson came 7 months pregnant, scared, and bleeding. Yet the nurse who should have protected her used racism, humiliation, and cruelty to push her to the edge of tragedy. But just when her world was collapsing, the automatic doors opened, and the man who walked in changed everything. Because when her billionaire husband arrived, calm, furious, and ready to burn the entire hospital down if he had to, the truth came crashing into the light, and justice finally began. Before we begin, please, kindly subscribe to this channel, like, comment, and share. I'll be so happy if this story touches hearts all over the world. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Medical Center hummed with an electrical persistence that seemed to match the dull throb behind Maya Thompson's eyes. She shifted in the uncomfortable plastic chair, her hand instinctively moving to cradle the swell of her belly, 7 months pregnant and feeling every single day of it. The waiting room was nearly empty at this early hour, just past 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Maya had specifically requested the earliest appointment available because she knew that Marcus, her husband, had an important board meeting today. She didn't want to worry him, didn't want to be the pregnant wife who needed constant attention. But the cramping had started at 3 a.m., sharp and insistent, different from the Braxton Hicks contractions her doctor had told her to expect. These felt wrong. They felt dangerous. So she'd slipped out of their penthouse apartment while Marcus was still sleeping, left a note on the kitchen counter, and called an Uber to take her to the hospital. Now, sitting in this sterile waiting room with its outdated magazines and the faint smell of antiseptic, Maya felt the first real tendrils of fear wrapping around her heart. She'd been waiting for 45 minutes, and every time she approached the reception desk, the nurse, a middle-aged white woman with severely pulled-back blonde hair and a name tag that read Barbara Hendricks, RN, had told her to sit down and wait her turn. "But I'm pregnant," Maya had said, trying to keep her voice steady, professional. "I'm experiencing cramping and—" "I can see you're pregnant, miss," Barbara had interrupted, her eyes barely leaving her computer screen. "Everyone here has a medical concern. That's why it's called a hospital. You need to wait like everyone else." There was something in the way Barbara said miss, a slight emphasis, a deliberate choice not to use "ma'am," that made Maya's skin prickle. She'd experienced racism before, of course. Growing up in Atlanta, she'd learned to recognize its many faces. The overt slurs shouted from car windows, the subtle clutching of purses when she entered an elevator, the surprised comments about how articulate she was. But she'd thought, hoped, really, that in a medical setting, especially as a pregnant woman, she'd be treated with basic human decency. She'd been wrong before. Maya closed her eyes and tried to breathe through another cramp. This one was stronger, radiating from her lower back around to her abdomen, squeezing like a vice. She pressed her hand harder against her belly, silently communicating with her daughter. "Hold on, baby girl. Just hold on. Mommy's going to get you help." "Excuse me," Maya called out again, unable to keep the desperation from her voice. "I really need to see someone. The cramping is getting worse." Barbara's head snapped up, and for the first time, she made direct eye contact with Maya. What Maya saw there made her blood run cold. It wasn't just annoyance or exhaustion from a long shift. It was contempt.
Pure, un disguised contempt.
"I told you to wait," Barbara said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I don't know what you're used to, but here, we follow procedures. We don't just jump the line because someone wants special treatment." Maya felt her face grow hot. Special treatment? "I'm 7 months pregnant and experiencing severe cramping. This could be preterm labor. This could be—" "Are you a doctor?" Barbara interrupted. "No, but—" "Then I suggest you let the medical professionals determine what constitutes an emergency." Barbara's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a kinder person. On her, it looked like a sneer. "Unless you have private insurance. You do have insurance, don't you?" The implication was clear. Maya felt it like a slap. The assumption that she, a black woman, must be here on Medicaid, must be one of those people looking for handouts, must not deserve the same level of care as the white patients who'd been called back despite arriving after her. Maya's hand trembled as she reached into her purse and pulled out her insurance card. It was platinum-level coverage, the kind that came with Marcus's position as CEO of Thompson Global Industries. She placed it on the counter with more force than necessary. "Here's my insurance," Maya said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "As you can see, I have excellent coverage. Now, can I please see a doctor?" Barbara barely glanced at the card. "Insurance doesn't change the queue, miss. You'll need to wait your turn." "How much longer?" "As long as it takes." Maya wanted to scream. She wanted to demand to see a manager, to call Marcus, to do something, anything, to make this woman understand that she was scared, that something felt wrong, that her baby's life might be in danger. But she'd learned long ago that when you're a black woman, especially a pregnant black woman, showing anger only makes things worse. You become the aggressive one, the difficult patient, the one they call security on. So she swallowed her rage, turned away from the desk, and made her way back to her seat. The cramping was coming in waves now, each one more intense than the last. She pulled out her phone, hesitated, then put it away. Marcus would be in his meeting by now. She didn't want to interrupt. She'd wait just a little longer. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Maya watched as two white women who'd arrived well after her were called back. One was holding her wrist, a possible sprain. The other was coughing but otherwise looked fine. Meanwhile, Maya sat there, feeling her baby's movements becoming more frantic, feeling the cramping intensify to the point where she had to bite her lip to keep from crying out. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She stood, gripping the armrest for support, and made her way back to the desk. Barbara saw her coming and her expression immediately hardened. "I need help," Maya said, abandoning all pretense of politeness. "Something is wrong. I need to see a doctor right now." "And I told you that you need to wait your turn," Barbara replied, her voice rising. "I don't appreciate you constantly harassing me while I'm trying to do my job." "Harassing you?" Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I'm asking for medical care. That's your job, to help patients get medical care." "My job," Barbara said, standing up so that she was looking down at Maya from behind the elevated desk, "is to maintain order in this emergency department. And you are disrupting that order." "I'm disrupting," Maya started, but another cramp hit her, this one so severe that she gasped and doubled over, clutching the edge of the desk. "Please," she whispered. "Please, something is wrong with my baby." For just a moment, Maya thought she saw something flicker in Barbara's eyes. Compassion, maybe. Understanding. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by that same cold contempt. "Perhaps if you'd taken better care of yourself during your pregnancy, you wouldn't be in this situation," Barbara said, her voice low enough that only Maya could hear. "But I suppose personal responsibility isn't something you people understand." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. You people. There it was, out in the open. The racism that had been simmering beneath every interaction, every dismissal, every moment of deliberate cruelty. Maya straightened up, despite the pain, despite the fear, despite everything. She looked Barbara dead in the eye and said, "I want to see your supervisor. Right now." Barbara's smile was arctic. "My supervisor isn't available at the moment. But if you continue to be disruptive, I'll have to call security. Or maybe the police. We have a zero-tolerance policy for aggressive behavior." "Aggressive?" Maya's voice cracked. "I'm asking for help. I'm 7 months pregnant and scared that something is happening to my baby, and you're threatening to call the police on me for asking for help. I'm asking you one more time to sit down and wait your turn," Barbara said, reaching for the phone on her desk. "If you refuse, I'll have no choice but to report you as a threat." Maya stood there, frozen in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. She was a respected architect with her own firm. She had a master's degree from Columbia. She was married to one of the most influential businessmen in the country. And yet none of that mattered. In this moment, to this woman, she was just another black woman to be dismissed, threatened, and dehumanized. The cramping hit again, worse this time, and Maya felt something warm and wet spreading down her legs. She looked down and saw the puddle forming at her feet. Blood. Dark red blood soaking through her maternity pants and pooling on the white linoleum floor. "Oh God," Maya whispered. "Oh God, no." She looked up at Barbara, expecting to see alarm, concern, some kind of medical response to what was clearly an emergency. Instead, Barbara's face twisted with disgust. "Did you just—" Barbara started, staring at the blood on the floor. "Are you serious right now? You're making a mess in my waiting room." "I'm bleeding," Maya said, her voice rising in panic. "Can't you see I'm bleeding? My baby." "You need to clean that up," Barbara demanded. "This is a hospital, not—"
"I'm hemorrhaging,"
Maya screamed, abandoning all attempts at staying calm. "I'm 7 months pregnant and I'm hemorrhaging. Call a doctor. Call someone. Help me." The waiting room, which had been nearly empty, now had several pairs of eyes watching the confrontation. An elderly white man looked concerned. A young Latina woman had her hand over her mouth in shock. But no one moved. No one intervened. Barbara picked up the phone, and for one blessed moment, Maya thought she was finally going to call for medical help. Instead, she dialed security. "Yes, this is Barbara Hendricks at the ER reception desk," she said into the phone, her eyes never leaving Maya. "I need security and police assistance. I have an aggressive patient who is refusing to follow instructions and causing a disturbance. She's made a mess in the waiting area and is becoming increasingly hostile." Aggressive? Maya could barely get the word out. The room was starting to spin. She reached out to steady herself against the desk, and Barbara actually flinched backward, as if Maya were trying to attack her. "Yes, send them immediately," Barbara continued into the phone. "I feel threatened. She's not responding to instructions and I'm concerned for my safety and the safety of other patients." Maya slid down to the floor, unable to stand anymore. The blood was still coming, soaking her clothes, pooling around her. She wrapped her arms around her belly, around her daughter, and started to cry. "Please," she sobbed. "Please help my baby. I don't care what you do to me, just help my baby." But Barbara had already hung up the phone and was backing away from the desk, as if distance could protect her from the reality of what she'd done, from the pregnant woman bleeding on her floor, begging for help that should have been given an hour ago. The automatic doors of the emergency entrance burst open and 2 security guards rushed in, followed closely by 2 police officers. They must have already been nearby, Maya thought distantly, watching as they approached her with hands on their belts, where their weapons hung. "You need to calm down," one of the officers said, a young white man with red hair and nervous eyes. "I'm bleeding," Maya said, looking up at them through her tears. "I'm 7 months pregnant and I'm bleeding. I need a doctor." "She's been refusing to follow hospital procedures," Barbara called out from behind her desk, where she'd positioned herself safely out of reach. "She's been verbally aggressive and making threats. I had no choice but to call for help." "That's not true," Maya protested. "I just asked for help. I told her I was having cramping and she wouldn't let me see a doctor. She kept making me wait and wait, and now I'm bleeding and something is wrong with my baby. Please, you have to believe me." "I need you to stand up," the second officer said, older, with grey at his temples and a harder set to his jaw. "I can't," Maya said. "I can't stand up. I'm losing too much blood. Please, call a doctor. Call an ambulance. Call someone who can help my baby." The younger officer knelt down beside her, and for a moment, Maya felt hope. Maybe he understood. Maybe he could see that this was a medical emergency, not a criminal situation. "Can you stand if I help you?" he asked, his voice gentler than his partner's. "I can try," Maya said. "But please, I need medical attention. My baby." "We'll get you medical attention," he said. "But first, I need to make sure you're not a threat to yourself or others. The nurse said you were being aggressive." "I wasn't," Maya insisted. "I was just asking for help. I've been here for almost 2 hours and she kept making me wait while she called other patients back. Patients who came in after me. Patients who weren't as sick as me." She saw something flicker in the young officer's eyes. Understanding, maybe, or at least doubt about Barbara's story. But his partner interrupted before he could respond. "We've had a report of aggressive behavior. We need to assess the situation. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do we need to take further action?" Further action? Maya felt hysteria bubbling up in her chest. What further action? "I'm bleeding. I'm losing my baby. What is wrong with you people?" "You people," the older officer repeated, his expression hardening. "Are you refusing to comply with lawful orders?" And just like that, Maya understood. It didn't matter that she was bleeding. It didn't matter that she was pregnant, that she was scared, that she needed help. What mattered was that she was a black woman who'd raised her voice, who'd challenged a white nurse's authority, who'd said "you people," and given them an excuse to see her as the threat rather than the victim. She looked around the waiting room desperately, hoping someone, anyone, would speak up, would tell these officers what they'd witnessed. But the elderly man was studying his shoes. The young Latina woman was pretending to be absorbed in her phone. No one wanted to get involved. "I'm 7 months pregnant," Maya said one more time, her voice breaking. "I'm bleeding. I need help. Please, please, I'm begging you." The younger officer looked torn. He glanced at the blood on the floor, then at Maya's tear-streaked face, then back at his partner. "Maybe we should call for a doctor first," he suggested. "She's clearly in distress." "She's clearly being non-compliant," his partner countered. Last warning. Stand up and come with us peacefully, or we'll have to use force." Use force on a pregnant woman. Maya couldn't believe this was happening. It felt like a nightmare, like any moment she'd wake up in her bed next to Marcus and realize it had all been a horrible dream. But the hand that closed around her upper arm was real. The pressure as the older officer hauled her to her feet was real. The pain that shot through her body as she was forced upright was real. And the blood that poured down her legs, that left a trail across the white linoleum as they started to drag her toward the exit, was horrifyingly, devastatingly real. "Wait," the younger officer said. "She's bleeding pretty heavily. Maybe we should." "She's fine," Barbara called out from her desk. "Pregnant women can have spotting. It's normal. She's just being dramatic to avoid consequences for her behavior." Maya wanted to scream that this wasn't spotting. That spotting was a few drops, not the hemorrhage that was soaking her clothes and dripping onto the floor. But she couldn't get enough air. The room was spinning, her vision tunneling, her body shutting down from blood loss and shock. "Marcus," she whispered, her husband's name a prayer on her lips. "Someone call Marcus." "Who is Marcus?" the younger officer asked, still supporting most of her weight as his partner maintained a grip on her arm. "My husband," Maya managed. "Marcus Thompson, CEO of Thompson Global Industries. He needs to know. He needs to know I'm here. That the baby." She saw the officers exchange a look. She knew what they were thinking, that she was making it up, claiming connection to a powerful man to get out of trouble. After all, what would a billionaire CEO be doing married to a black woman bleeding all over an emergency room floor? "Sure he is," the older officer said, his tone making clear he didn't believe her for a second. "And I'm married to Beyoncé. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and refusing to comply with lawful orders." "Arrest?" Maya could barely process the word. "You're arresting me? I'm losing my baby and you're arresting me." "You should have thought about that before you decided to cause trouble," Barbara said, and Maya turned to look at her. The nurse was standing now, arms crossed over her chest, satisfaction evident on her face. This was what she'd wanted all along, Maya realized. The humiliation. The control. The power to put a black woman in her place. "Nurse Hendricks, we are going to need a statement," the older officer said. "Of course," Barbara replied. "But perhaps you could remove her from the premises first? She's upsetting the other patients." Maya looked around the waiting room again. The other patients were still resolutely avoiding eye contact. No one was going to help her. No one was going to speak up. In this moment, she was entirely alone. The officers started walking her toward the exit, and Maya felt her legs giving out. She was losing too much blood. Her vision was going grey at the edges. She could feel herself losing consciousness. "The baby," she whispered. "Please, someone help my baby." "You can see a doctor at the jail," the older officer said. "If you really need one." If she really needed one. As if the blood running down her legs wasn't evidence enough. As if her pleas, her tears, her obvious distress weren't enough to warrant basic human compassion. They were halfway to the automatic doors when Maya heard a commotion behind them. A man's voice, deep and commanding, cutting through the ambient noise of the emergency room. "Where is my wife?" Maya's heart leaped. She knew that voice. She'd know it anywhere. "Marcus." "Sir, you can't just come in here," someone, probably Barbara, was saying. "Sir, please, you need to wait." "I asked where my wife is," Marcus repeated, and his voice was no longer just commanding. It was dangerous. "Maya Thompson. She's 7 months pregnant. She left me a note saying she had cramping and was coming to St. Catherine's. Where is she?" The officers had stopped walking, confused by the interruption. They turned, and Maya turned with them, and there he was. Marcus Thompson stood just inside the automatic doors, and even in her deteriorating state, Maya felt a surge of love and relief at the sight of him. He was still in his suit from this morning, charcoal grey, perfectly tailored, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent. His skin was the same deep brown as hers, and his eyes, those intelligent, piercing eyes that had first captivated her at a charity gala 5 years ago, were scanning the room frantically. Behind him stood 2 other men. Maya recognized them even through her fading vision. Devon Price, Marcus's head of security and a former Secret Service agent, and James Chen, the Thompson family's personal attorney. When Marcus went somewhere, especially when he thought there might be trouble, he brought his team. Those scanning eyes found her, took in the officers holding her upright, the blood-soaked clothes, the tears on her face. For one moment, just one, Maya saw something terrifying flash across her husband's face.
Pure, incandescent rage.
Then it was gone, replaced by the controlled, calculated expression he wore in boardrooms when he was about to destroy someone's career. "Let go of my wife," Marcus said, his voice quiet but carrying across the entire waiting room. "Right now." "Sir, this woman is under arrest," the older officer said, but his voice was uncertain now. He could see the expensive suit, the powerful entourage, the private security. This wasn't adding up with the narrative he'd been given. Under arrest. Marcus crossed the waiting room in long strides, Devon and James keeping pace on either side of him. Under arrest for what? Disorderly conduct and refusing to comply with lawful orders, the officer replied, but he'd already loosened his grip on Maya's arm. Marcus reached them and gently took Maya from the officer's grasp, supporting her weight effortlessly against his body. His hand immediately went to her belly, feeling for movement, and Maya saw his jaw clench when he felt the dampness of her blood-soaked clothes. "How long has she been bleeding?" Marcus asked, looking from the officers to the reception desk where Barbara had gone very pale. "Sir, we only just arrived," the younger officer started. "I'm not asking you," Marcus cut him off. His eyes fixed on Barbara with laser precision. "You, nurse, how long has my wife been in this hospital bleeding?" Barbara's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She. It's only spotting. Does that look like spotting to you? Marcus gestured to the trail of blood across the floor, to Maya's soaked clothing. My wife came to this hospital over 2 hours ago complaining of cramping. She's 7 months pregnant with our daughter. And instead of giving her immediate medical attention, you did what exactly? She was being difficult, Barbara stammered. She was demanding special treatment, refusing to wait her turn. She's 7 months pregnant and hemorrhaging. Marcus's voice rose, the careful control slipping. That is special treatment. That's called emergency medical care. That's your job. Devon had his phone out, already making calls. James was taking photos of the blood on the floor, Maya's clothing, the positions of everyone in the room. This was what they did. They documented, they prepared, they built cases. Mr. Thompson, the younger officer said, and from his tone, Maya knew he'd figured out who exactly he was dealing with. We received a call about an aggressive patient. An aggressive patient, Marcus repeated. My wife, who weighs 140 pounds soaking wet, which she literally is right now, with her own blood, was so aggressive that you needed 2 police officers to arrest her? While she was miscarrying. We didn't know she was miscarrying, the officer protested. The nurse said she was fine, just being dramatic. And you took the word of a nurse over the evidence of your own eyes. Marcus looked at the blood on the floor again, then back at the officers. You saw her bleeding and you still thought arresting her was the appropriate response. Sir, we were responding to a call about disruptive behavior. Where's the doctor? Marcus interrupted. Where's the medical team? My wife has been in this hospital for over 2 hours and I don't see a single doctor. Devon, call Dr. Patterson. Tell her we need an OBGYN team at St. Catherine's immediately. Tell her it's Maya. Tell her it's an emergency. Devon was already dialing, already speaking in low urgent tones into his phone. And James, Marcus continued, I want the names of every person who interacted with my wife this morning. Every person who saw her bleeding and did nothing. Every person who let this happen. Already on it, James said, his fingers flying across his phone screen. Maya felt her knees giving out again, and Marcus immediately swept her up into his arms, cradling her against his chest. I've got you, baby, he murmured into her hair. I've got you. You're going to be okay. You're both going to be okay. Marcus, Maya whispered. The baby. She stopped moving. She saw the fear flash across his face, saw him forcibly push it down. Dr. Patterson is coming. She's the best. She's going to take care of you both. Sir, you can't just... Barbara started to protest as Marcus began walking toward the emergency room doors that led to the treatment area. Marcus didn't even look at her. Devon, if anyone tries to stop me from getting my wife medical attention, remove them from my path. Devon, who was 6 feet 4 inches and built like a linebacker, simply positioned himself between Marcus and Barbara. The message was clear. This is against hospital policy. Barbara called out. You can't just walk into restricted areas. I'm calling security. Call whoever you want, Marcus replied, shouldering through the doors with Maya in his arms. Call the police again. Call the National Guard. But my wife is getting medical attention right now, and anyone who tries to stop that is going to spend the rest of their life wishing they hadn't. The doors swung shut behind them, cutting off Barbara's protests. They were in a hallway now, busy with medical personnel, patients on gurneys, the organized chaos of an emergency room. Marcus stood there, holding Maya, his commanding presence immediately drawing attention. I need a doctor, he shouted. My wife is 7 months pregnant and hemorrhaging. Someone help her right now. Unlike the waiting room, unlike the reception desk, here the response was immediate. A young black doctor approached at a run, a team of nurses behind her. What happened? She asked, already assessing Maya with practiced eyes. Placental abruption, maybe, Marcus said. She started cramping at 3 a.m. She's been here for over 2 hours but no one would see her. She started hemorrhaging about 20 minutes ago. The doctor's face went hard. No one saw her. For 2 hours? While she was having symptoms. She turned to her team. Get me a gurney, now. Someone page OB. Tell them we have a possible abruption at 30 weeks. And someone find out why the hell a pregnant woman presenting with contractions was left in the waiting room long enough to start hemorrhaging. They had Maya on a gurney in seconds, Marcus still holding her hand, refusing to let go. They were moving fast through the corridors now, the doctor firing questions at Maya about her symptoms, her medical history, when she'd last felt the baby move. I need to do an ultrasound, the doctor said as they burst into a treatment room. Mr. Thompson, you'll need to step back. I'm not leaving her, Marcus said firmly. The doctor looked at him, looked at Maya, then nodded. Fine. But stay out of the way. They transferred Maya to the bed, cut away her blood-soaked clothes, placed monitors on her belly. The room filled with medical staff, all moving with urgent precision. Maya tried to focus on their faces, their voices, but everything was becoming distant, dreamlike. Then she heard it. The sound she'd been terrified she'd never hear again. Her baby's heartbeat, fast and strong, broadcasting from the monitor. The baby's alive, the doctor said, reading the monitor. Heart rate is elevated but strong. But you're right, Mr. Thompson. This is a placental abruption. Significant bleeding. We need to get her to surgery now. Surgery? Maya's voice was weak. Emergency C-section, the doctor explained. Your placenta has partially separated from the uterine wall. Your baby needs to come out now, or neither of you will make it. But she's only 30 weeks, Maya protested. She's too early. She'll have a much better chance in the NICU than she will in a uterus with a detaching placenta, the doctor said gently. I know this is scary, but we need to move fast. Do it, Marcus said. Do whatever you need to do to save them both. They were moving again, rushing through hallways toward the operating room. Marcus was jogging alongside the gurney, still holding Maya's hand. Mr. Thompson, you can't come into the OR, someone was saying. Watch me, Marcus replied. Sir, unless you're scrubbed in. Then scrub me in. Marcus's voice cracked. That's my wife. That's my daughter. I'm not leaving them. Marcus, Maya said softly, and he looked down at her. She saw the tears in his eyes, the fear he was trying so hard to hide. It's okay. I'll be okay. Go take care of what needs to be taken care of. Maya. I know you, Marcus Thompson, she said, managing a weak smile. You're already planning how you're going to burn that hospital down. Go do it. I'll be here when you're done. For a moment, he looked torn. Then he leaned down, kissed her forehead, her lips. I love you, he whispered. You fight, you hear me? You fight for our daughter. I will, she promised. They reached the OR doors. The surgical team surrounded Maya's gurney, preparing to take her in. Marcus stepped back, finally releasing her hand. Mr. Thompson, the doctor said, we'll take good care of her. I promise. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. He watched as they wheeled Maya through the doors, watched until they closed and she disappeared from view. Then he turned around, and the grief and fear on his face transformed into something else entirely. Something cold and ruthless and absolutely terrifying. James and Devon were waiting in the hallway, and they saw it too. Devon actually took a step back. James, Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. I want to know everything. Everyone who touched her, everyone who saw her, everyone who made decisions about her care. I want names, positions, employment history, everything. Already compiling it, James said, holding up his tablet. Devon, get me hospital administration. Get me the board of directors. Get me whoever the hell owns this place. I want them here, in person, in the next 30 minutes. On it, Devon said, already making calls. And get me the police commissioner, Marcus added. And the mayor. And every news outlet in the city. I want everyone to know what happened here today. Marcus, James said carefully, maybe we should wait until we know Maya and the baby are okay before we...
No, Marcus interrupted.
We are not waiting. Because right now, somewhere in this city, there's another black woman in another hospital being treated like her life doesn't matter. There's another pregnant woman being ignored, being dismissed, being humiliated by people who are supposed to care for her. And I'm done waiting. I'm done being patient. I'm done pretending that things will get better if we just keep our heads down and don't make waves. He started walking back toward the emergency room entrance, James and Devon hurrying to keep up. That nurse threatened to have my wife arrested for the crime of asking for medical help while black and pregnant. Those police officers saw her bleeding and decided arresting her was more important than getting her to a doctor. Every single person in that waiting room watched it happen and did nothing. And someone in this hospital's administration, someone in a position of power, created an environment where this kind of thing could happen. Where a nurse felt comfortable calling the police on a pregnant woman having a medical emergency. They reached the waiting room. It was more crowded now, filled with people who'd heard the commotion, who'd seen Marcus Thompson carry his bleeding wife into the emergency room. Barbara was standing behind her desk, looking terrified. Marcus walked straight up to her. You called the police on my wife, he said quietly. You saw her bleeding and you called her aggressive. You dismissed her symptoms. You made her wait while she was miscarrying. You humiliated her. You endangered her life and the life of my daughter. I was following protocol, Barbara stammered. She was being difficult. She was asking for help, Marcus said. And you decided that putting her in her place was more important than saving her life. Tell me, Nurse Hendricks, would you have done the same thing if she'd been white? Barbara's face went pale, then red. That has nothing to do with. It has everything to do with it, Marcus said. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to be fired. Today. Right now. And you're never going to work in healthcare again. I'm going to personally ensure that. Because the world needs to know what you did. The world needs to know that you thought a black woman's humiliation was more important than her baby's life. You can't do that, Barbara said, but her voice was shaking. You can't just. Can't I? Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it.
I'm Marcus Thompson.
I own 3 hospitals in this state. I sit on the board of 2 of the largest healthcare systems in the country. I donate tens of millions of dollars annually to medical research and hospital funding. And I'm about to make it my life's mission to ensure that what happened to my wife today never happens to anyone else. So yes, Nurse Hendricks, I absolutely can do that. The automatic doors burst open and a woman in a business suit rushed in, flanked by 2 men in similar attire. From their panicked expressions, Marcus guessed they were hospital administration, summoned by Devon's calls. Mr. Thompson, the woman said, slightly out of breath. I'm Patricia Walters, the hospital administrator. I just heard what happened, and I want to assure you. You want to assure me of what, exactly? Marcus turned to face her. That this is an isolated incident? That this isn't how your hospital typically treats black patients? Because I'm not interested in your assurances, Ms. Walters. I'm interested in accountability. Of course, she said quickly. We take these allegations very seriously and will conduct a full investigation. You'll conduct nothing, Marcus interrupted. Because I'm going to conduct my own investigation. I'm going to hire independent investigators, civil rights attorneys, and I'm going to expose every single systemic failure that led to my wife being treated like a criminal instead of a patient. Patricia Walters's face had gone ashen. Behind her, the 2 men were whispering urgently to each other, undoubtedly calculating the legal and financial implications of having Marcus Thompson as an enemy. Mr. Thompson, please, Patricia said, her voice taking on a pleading quality. Let's discuss this privately. I'm sure we can come to some kind of understanding. Understanding? Marcus's voice rose, echoing through the waiting room. My wife came to your hospital bleeding and scared, and your staff called the police on her. There's nothing to understand except that this hospital has a culture of racism that starts at the top and flows down to every interaction. How many other black women have been treated this way? How many have been too afraid to speak up? How many didn't have a husband with the resources to fight back? Before Patricia could respond, the automatic doors opened again, and this time it was the two police officers from earlier, accompanied by a third man in a sergeant's uniform. The younger officer looked uncomfortable. The older one looked defensive. Mr. Thompson, the sergeant said, approaching carefully.
I'm Sergeant Morrison.
I understand there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Marcus turned his attention to the officers. Your officers arrested my pregnant wife while she was hemorrhaging. They saw the blood. They heard her begging for help. And they still chose to handcuff her and drag her out of the hospital. What part of that is a misunderstanding? We were responding to a call about an aggressive patient, the older officer said. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't bother to find out, Marcus said. You saw a black woman, you heard the word aggressive, and you made your decision. You didn't assess the situation. You didn't question whether the nurse might be lying or exaggerating. You just assumed the black woman was the problem. The sergeant held up his hands in a placating gesture. Mr. Thompson, I assure you this will be investigated thoroughly. If there was any misconduct. If. Marcus's voice was dangerous. There's no if. There's video evidence. There are witnesses. There's a trail of my wife's blood across that floor. And there's the fact that right now, she's in surgery having an emergency C-section at 30 weeks because your officers wasted precious minutes arresting her instead of helping her. By now, several people in the waiting room had their phones out, recording. Marcus knew the video would be on social media within minutes, spreading across the internet, going viral. Good. Let the world see. Let everyone know what had happened here. Devon approached Marcus and spoke quietly in his ear. Dr. Patterson just arrived. She's scrubbing in for the surgery. And Channel 5 News is outside, asking for a statement. Marcus nodded. Tell them I'll make a statement after I know my wife and daughter are safe. But tell them to stay. Tell them there's going to be a story here. He turned back to Patricia Walters. I want Barbara Hendricks terminated immediately. I want a full review of every complaint filed against her, every patient interaction she's had in the past year. And I want the names and personnel files of every administrator who supervised her, everyone who was in a position to notice a pattern of discriminatory behavior and did nothing. Mr. Thompson, I can't just fire someone without due process, Patricia started. Then suspend her, Marcus said. Effective immediately. With pay if you must, but I want her nowhere near patients. And I want a meeting with your entire board of directors tomorrow morning. Because this hospital is going to implement mandatory bias training, expanded oversight of patient care, and a zero-tolerance policy for racism. Or I'm going to use every bit of influence I have to ensure that St. Catherine's Medical Center becomes a cautionary tale. James stepped forward, handing Patricia a business card. Mr. Thompson's legal team will be in contact with detailed demands. I suggest you consult with your attorneys before our meeting tomorrow. A nurse appeared in the doorway leading to the surgical wing. Mr. Thompson, your wife is out of surgery. Dr. Patterson would like to speak with you. Everything else, the anger, the plans for retribution, the righteousness of his cause, all of it faded away in an instant. Marcus's heart seized in his chest. Are they alive? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The nurse smiled. Dr. Patterson will explain everything. Please, follow me. Marcus didn't wait for permission. He strode toward the doors, Devon and James following close behind. They walked through the maze of hallways until they reached a private consultation room. Inside, A woman in surgical scrubs was washing her hands at a sink. She turned as they entered. Dr. Sarah Patterson had been the Thompson family's OB/GYN for 3 years, through Maya's previous miscarriage and this carefully monitored pregnancy. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a reputation as one of the best high-risk pregnancy specialists in the country. "Marcus," she said, and from her tone, he knew. He knew before she said another word. "They alive," she said, and Marcus felt his knees go weak with relief. Devon caught his elbow, steadying him. "Both of them. Maya's stable. The surgery went well. We were able to stop the bleeding and there's no indication of any permanent damage." "And the baby?" Marcus asked. Dr. Patterson's smile widened. "Your daughter is in the NICU. She's 3 pounds, 2 ounces. She's breathing on her own with just a little oxygen support. Her vitals are strong. Marcus, she's a fighter. Just like her mother." Marcus sat down heavily in one of the consultation room chairs. He put his head in his hands and let himself feel it, the fear he'd been pushing down, the terror that he'd been holding at bay. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. Dr. Patterson sat down beside him, putting a gentle hand on his shoulder. "They're both going to be okay," she said softly. "Maya will need to stay in the hospital for a few days, and your daughter will be in the NICU for probably 6 to 8 weeks. But they're going to be okay." "Can I see them?" Marcus asked, looking up at her with tears streaming down his face. "Maya's in recovery. She's still groggy from the anesthesia, but she's asking for you. And your daughter is being settled in the NICU. You can see them both." Marcus stood, wiping his eyes. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for getting here so fast. Thank you for saving them." "That's my job," Dr. Patterson said. Then her expression hardened. "But Marcus, what I heard happened in that ER. That should never have happened." Maya came in with textbook signs of placental abruption. Any competent medical professional should have recognized it immediately. The fact that she was left in a waiting room for 2 hours, that she was treated like a criminal when she asked for help, it's unconscionable. "I know," Marcus said. "And I'm going to make sure everyone knows. I'm going to make sure it never happens again." Dr. Patterson nodded. "Good. Because Maya isn't the first black woman this has happened to, and unless something changes, she won't be the last. Maternal mortality rates for black women in this country are 3 times higher than for white women. 3 times. And it's not because of health factors. It's because of exactly what happened to Maya today. It's because black women's pain isn't taken seriously. Their concerns are dismissed. Their lives are valued less." "Not anymore," Marcus said. "Not if I have anything to say about it." They walked together to the recovery room where Maya was resting. Marcus approached her bed slowly, taking in the 4 lines, the monitors, the paleness of her skin. But her eyes were open, and when she saw him, she smiled. "Hey," she said, her voice hoarse. "Hey yourself," Marcus said, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Maya admitted. "But alive. Our baby." "Perfect," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Small, but perfect. Dr. Patterson says she's strong. She's going to be just fine." Fresh tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I thought I was going to lose her. I thought." "I know," Marcus said, sitting on the edge of her bed and pulling her carefully into his arms. "I know, baby. But you didn't. You fought for her. You both made it." They held each other for a long moment, letting the relief and love and residual fear wash over them. Finally, Maya pulled back slightly. "What happened after I went into surgery?" she asked. "I heard shouting." Marcus's expression darkened. "I had some conversations with hospital administration. And the police. And that nurse." "Marcus, what did you do?" "What I should have done years ago," he said. "I stopped being polite about racism. I stopped accepting apologies and promises of investigations. I stopped letting people get away with treating us like we are less than human. Maya studied his face. You're going to make this a thing, aren't you? A big, public thing. Is that okay? Marcus asked. I know you value your privacy. But Maya, what happened to you? It happens to black women every day. And most of them don't have the resources to fight back. I do. We do. And I think we have a responsibility to use those resources. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she nodded. You're right. If this had happened to someone without your name, without your money, without your influence, she might have died in that waiting room. Her baby might have died. And no one would have cared. People are going to care now, Marcus promised. I'm going to make sure of it. A nurse came in to check Maya's vitals, and Dr. Patterson followed. Maya, you're doing great. If you're feeling up to it, we can take you to see your daughter in about an hour. I'd like that, Maya said. What about you, Marcus? Have you seen her yet? Not yet, Marcus admitted. I wanted to make sure you were okay first. Go, Maya said. Go see our daughter. Take pictures. I want to see her even if I can't hold her yet. Marcus kissed her forehead. I'll be right back. The NICU was on the 4th floor, a secure unit with strict protocols about who could enter. But Marcus Thompson didn't wait in lines, and within minutes he was scrubbed in and being led to an incubator in the corner of the room. And there she was. His daughter. Tiny and perfect, with a shock of dark hair and skin the same warm brown as her mother's. She was wearing a diaper that looked comically large on her small body, with monitoring wires attached to her chest and a small oxygen tube under her nose. Her eyes were closed, her miniature fingers curled into fists. Marcus had thought he understood love before this moment. He loved Maya with everything in him, loved her more than he'd thought it was possible to love another person. But looking at his daughter, this tiny, fragile, perfect human being who existed because of him and Maya, he felt something shift in his chest, something fundamental and permanent. Hi, baby girl, he whispered, pressing his hand against the incubator. I'm your daddy. Your mama and I have been waiting so long to meet you. The baby shifted slightly, one tiny fist uncurling and then curling again. You gave us quite a scare today, Marcus continued, his voice breaking. But you're here now. You're safe. And I promise you, I promise, I'm going to make sure you grow up in a world that's better than this one. A world where you're never treated the way your mama was treated today. A world where your life matters just as much as anyone else's. He stood there for a long time, just watching her breathe, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. Devon found him eventually, bringing news that the press was gathering outside, that social media was already exploding with videos from the waiting room, that the mayor's office had called. Let them wait, Marcus said, not taking his eyes off his daughter. Right now, the only thing that matters is right here. But eventually, he knew, he would have to leave this quiet room and face the storm he'd created. He would have to make statements, field questions, deal with lawyers and administrators and politicians. He would have to turn his family's trauma into a catalyst for change. Because that nurse, Barbara Hendricks, had been wrong about so many things. But she'd been right about one thing. Marcus Thompson wasn't going to just let this go. He wasn't going to accept an apology and move on. He was going to make noise. He was going to make trouble. He was going to make damn sure that what happened to Maya today meant something. 3 hours later, Marcus stood in front of a cluster of microphones outside St. Catherine's Medical Center. Behind him, Devon and James stood ready. Around him, reporters jostled for position, cameras flashing. My name is Marcus Thompson, he began, his voice steady and clear. This morning, my wife, Maya Thompson, came to this hospital because she was experiencing cramping and was concerned about our unborn daughter. She is 7 months pregnant. She is a successful architect with her own firm. She has a master's degree from Columbia University. She has excellent health insurance. And none of that mattered. He paused, letting the words sink in. For over 2 hours, my wife sat in that waiting room, her condition deteriorating. She repeatedly asked for help. She told the nursing staff that something was wrong. And instead of receiving medical care, she was dismissed, belittled, and ultimately threatened with arrest. When she began hemorrhaging, when there was literal blood on the floor, the nurse at the reception desk called the police rather than calling a doctor. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of reporters. Marcus continued. My wife was arrested. While miscarrying. While losing our daughter. Police officers saw her bleeding and decided that handcuffing her was more important than getting her medical attention. And it was only because I have resources, because I have influence, because I could force my way into that hospital and demand care, that my wife and daughter are alive tonight. He let that statement hang in the air for a moment. But what about the women who don't have my resources? What about the black mothers who come to hospitals in crisis and are turned away, dismissed, disbelieved? The statistics are clear. Black women in America are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women. And it's not because of underlying health conditions. It's because of exactly what happened to my wife today. It's because our healthcare system doesn't value black lives. Marcus's voice grew stronger, more passionate. I'm announcing today the creation of the Maya Thompson Foundation for Maternal Health Equity. We will provide funding for hospitals to implement bias training, to increase diversity in medical staff, and to create accountability measures for discriminatory treatment. We will offer legal support to women who experience racism in healthcare settings. And we will push for legislation that makes this kind of negligence a criminal offense, not just a civil one. He looked directly into the cameras. To every black woman watching this, your life matters. Your pain is real. Your concerns are valid. And you deserve better than what my wife received today. To every healthcare provider, do better. Be better. Because we are watching now. And we are not going to be silent anymore. The questions came rapid fire after that, but Marcus had said what he needed to say. He fielded a few more queries about his wife's condition, stable, about the baby, strong and fighting, and about potential legal action, absolutely. Then Devon escorted him back inside, away from the cameras and the chaos. Back in Maya's room, Marcus found her awake and watching the news coverage on the television mounted on the wall. She looked up as he entered, and there were tears on her face. That was beautiful, she said. And terrifying. Marcus, we are going to have a target on our backs now. Every racist with an internet connection is going to come after us. Let them come, Marcus said, taking her hand. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm tired of being respectable. I'm tired of being the good Negro who doesn't make waves. Our daughter almost died today because I've spent my whole life trying not to make white people uncomfortable. That ends now. Maya squeezed his hand. Have you thought of a name for her yet? Our fighter. Marcus smiled. I was thinking. Hope. Hope Elizabeth Thompson. Because today, despite everything, despite the racism and the negligence and the cruelty, she survived. She gave us hope. And maybe she can give hope to other families too. Hope, Maya repeated, testing the name. I love it. Hope Elizabeth Thompson. They sat together in the quiet of the hospital room, hands intertwined, thinking about their daughter fighting in the NICU, about the long road ahead, about the battle they'd just declared against a system that had tried to destroy them. 2 weeks later, Barbara Hendricks was fired from St. Catherine's Medical Center following an internal investigation that revealed a pattern of complaints from black patients about her treatment. The 2 police officers were suspended pending an investigation by the department's Internal Affairs Division. Patricia Walters resigned as hospital administrator after the board of directors voted no confidence in her leadership. But Marcus knew that wasn't enough. Individual accountability mattered, but systemic change was what would save lives. So he poured money and energy into the Maya Thompson Foundation, hiring the best civil rights attorneys, the most respected medical ethicists, and activists who'd been fighting this battle long before Marcus had a personal stake in it. 6 weeks after that terrifying morning, Marcus and Maya brought Hope Elizabeth Thompson home from the hospital. She weighed 5 pounds, 4 ounces, and she was perfect. As Marcus carried her car seat into their penthouse apartment, he made her a silent promise. He would spend the rest of his life making sure she never had to experience what her mother had experienced. That she would grow up in a world that valued her, protected her, and saw her full humanity. And if he had to burn down every institution that stood in the way of that world? Well, Marcus Thompson had never been afraid of fire. As he placed Hope's car seat gently on the couch and watched Maya lean down to stroke their daughter's soft cheek, Marcus realized something profound. That nurse had been right about one thing. He was going to be trouble. More trouble than she could have ever imagined. And he was just getting started. In the end, what happened that morning at St. Catherine's became more than a scandal. It became a warning. A reminder that racism isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind uniforms, policies, and fake professionalism. A reminder that a pregnant black woman should never have to beg for care, never have to defend her humanity, never have to bleed on a waiting room floor to be believed. But most of all, it became a testament to love. Because when Maya fell, Marcus didn't just catch her. He shook the world until someone answered. And as the doors closed behind her gurney and the doctors fought for 2 lives, the truth was clear. No one gets away with hurting Marcus Thompson's family. Not in this lifetime. Not ever. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more life-changing stories.